Okay, hello, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jason Reynolds with the Real Estate Now podcast. So I made a mistake and thought I was recording when I was doing my Facebook Live, but I wasn't. So, you famous podcast audience and YouTube audience get a one and only second video on foundation issues and repair. So, super exciting. So before I start today's episode, we're actually starting a new series. I guess it's going to be Insider Tips. So we're going to focus on specific aspects of real estate that I think is good to talk about for clients, whether it's buyers, sellers, anybody out there. That's just good knowledge that I've learned over time that I wanted to share. So that being said, I do want to provide a disclaimer to everybody. What I'm sharing today is based on personal experience and research. So it's not meant as a guarantee. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a foundation expert. So if you guys are making any decisions or have any specific questions, I recommend A, that you talk with an engineer, B, that you talk with a foundation company, and C, if you're looking for advice, that you speak with a real estate agent that you have hired to help you either buy or sell a house. Now that could be me, but I always recommend you talk with that person that you specifically hired to give you advice. So everything I'm saying here is just personal experience, from my time being in real estate. So that being said, I wanted to quickly give an overview on the types of slabs that you typically see in Texas. And there's two main types that you see. One is going to be slab and the other is going to be pier and beam. Slab is actually just a slab of concrete, and then pier and beam is going to be different points of support throughout the house. In pier and beam houses, those are the types that have crawl spaces underneath the floors that you can access. It's maybe a foot or two, and then it's dirt, and you have different support areas. So all your plumbing runs underneath there, and things like that. So, but mostly what you're going to see here in Texas in the DFW area are slab foundations. So those are your main foundation types. Now, foundation issues, the ways you typically find out about them is going to be a few items. One is cracking on the walls. So you may see settling in houses, and that's totally normal. And settling could just be maybe separation at areas in the drywall. And houses are so large and the slabs are so big that they do just naturally settle. But when you start to see like diagonal cracks at the corner of door frames or windows, that could indicate a greater problem. Another one is sloping floors. So I've actually walked through houses before that you can tell that you're walking downhill. So that can be a clear indication as well that there's a foundation issue. Cracked bricks on the exterior. You can actually see through the mortar, a crack all the way up, or you could also see cracks through the brick themselves. So if you ever see that, it's good to have it checked out. It may not mean it's a large problem. Sometimes I've seen cracked bricks and there's no problem at all. So again, that's usually can be a sign that you have foundation problems. Others is doors not closing or opening, getting stuck easily, maybe during different seasons. I know I've lived in a house before where the doors open and closed easily during a certain period of the year, and then another part you couldn't even close it. And if you did, it was extremely hard to open the door. So that could be a sign as well. So the reasons that you typically see for foundation problems is going to be your consistency of the soil rapidly changing. So in Texas, it tends to get very hot in the summers, and we can have wet, periods. But what happens is that soil, when it's wet, will compound, but then when it's dry, it can expand. And then so if it's doing it in different areas by or underneath your foundation, then that can create a lot of stress and then eventually create foundation problems. Another reason is pooling of water. So if you have areas where when it rains really hard, it just pools in a certain area by your house, that can create problems as well. Erosion of soil. So if you don't have gutters, then it could just be, it could be coming right off the roof and then eroding the soil right next to your foundation, therefore removing the support that's there. Next is obstruction from trees and roots. So if you have trees or bushes close to your house, long term that can cause some problems. So it's always best to try and keep those away from your house, so that way it doesn't interfere with the foundation at all. Another can be plumbing leaks. So if you ever see water pooling around your house, but you haven't watered the yard, and it hasn't rained in a long period of time, that could be a sign that you have a plumbing leak somewhere, maybe in the foundation. It could be in the house. Again, you'd have to hire a plumber to look at that. But that could be something to check out, because that can cause foundation issues as well. And lastly, you could just be poor construction. It could be that the ground wasn't compacted correctly when the home was built. And it could be that the foundation the slab wasn't poured correctly when it was poured. So, all these are issues that a foundation engineer would be able to really evaluate and give you advice on, but those are a few of the things to look out for. So ways that you can prevent foundation issues. One is a timed sprinkler. So a lot of homes that are newer have sprinkler systems that water the yard, but that also waters the area next to the foundation. So that, is considered to be a sprinkler around the foundation. There's actually other systems that are specifically to water foundations. So it's just the equivalent of a sprinkler system for the foundation, but it only waters the foundation itself and not your yard. A lot of folks will also dig maybe a small trench and put a soaker hose in the ground and then put it on a timer to water every once in a while. That also works, but you tend to have to replace that fairly often because that hose will deteriorate being in the ground. Another way to prevent foundation issues is to drain water away from the house. So if you do see water pooling after it rains and staying there, you want to make sure that soil slopes away from the house. So that way any water that's hitting is leaving the house everywhere around the perimeter. Another one is avoid having trees and shrubs close to the foundation. We talked about that being the reason for foundation problems. Another is keeping the area moist. So that's done through the sprinkler systems or foundation watering systems. Another is cleaning out gutters and downspouts. So if you end up having a backed up gutter or downspout, then it's just going to pool over and create those same issues. So you want to make sure that's all clear, so that way it will actually drain the water, and make sure your spouts are directing the water away from the house and not just directing it right at your foundation and creating a pool. So those are the main issues. So foundation issues typically come up maybe when you're selling your house. So if you already know about foundation problems, you need to disclose these items. Otherwise, it can create issues for you in the future. So again, it's always important to disclose these on your seller's disclosures, and disclose any inspections you might have, any reports, any estimates. You want to be completely transparent. And then another issue is you may not know until you have a potential buyer and they get an inspection, and then they find out that there may be foundation problems. So, again, rely upon your real estate agent to walk you through that, to get additional opinions. But again, it's always best to address the issues and figure out the best way to resolve it, whether that's moving forward with that particular buyer or not. Again, visit with your real estate agent about how to do that. Another aspect of that is if that buyer is getting financing, whether it's conventional or VA, lenders, to my knowledge, will not close on a property that has an active foundation problem. They have to have proof that work has been completed and that the foundation is now performing, is within limits, and has a passing structural engineer's report. So if it's a cash transaction, then that's all negotiated, and it could be purchased by the buyer as long as they're aware of that issue. But when it comes to financing, that is going to be something you're going to have to talk with your agent about in terms of working through that. So your options when you find out that you maybe have foundation issues is going to be, one, to contact a foundation company. There's plenty of them in the DFW Metroplex, and they typically will offer inspections at no charge. So they'll come out to your house. They have devices that measure the level of the areas of the foundation, and they will give a recommendation for the work that needs to be completed. They'll often provide an estimate as well. So that's one route. Another route is to actually get a foundation engineer's report. So that's going to be a formal report that is a third-party report. They do not do foundation work themselves. They're simply giving an in-depth opinion of how the foundation is operating, where piers might need to be placed, and what issues are causing the foundation problems and what can be done to help prevent them in the future. Those do cost. I did have an example here of one that was about a year and a half ago that a client of mine purchased. That was $650 for a 4-bed, 2-bath house. It was roughly 2,700 square feet. So those do cost, but again, an important thing to think about is it is a third-party opinion, and the person that is giving the opinion isn't doing the work. So there's no conflict of interest there based on my experience. But it does cost $650 versus nothing is a big difference depending on your budget. So again, visit with your agent in terms of how to walk through that and what might work best for your personal situation. So when you do hire a foundation company, put together some questions that are great to ask them as you are doing your research. One is the company insured? Obviously you want them to be insured. How long have they been in business? You'd like a company that's been in business for a while. Ask them what type of piers they're recommending. There are many different types. There's steel piers, concrete piers. So you want to ask them what type they're recommending, what's the reason for that type. That could be reliant upon the types of soil that are around your house. So make sure they're knowledgeable about what they're talking about, and they're not afraid to inform you about that. Another one is asking if they're a member of the Better Business Bureau and check their ratings. With today's technology, it's always great to go online, look at Google reviews, look at Facebook reviews, look at Angie's List. There's many ways that you can check the reputation of a company and actually look at real reviews from clients that have used them in the past. Do they pull permits for work is a great question. To my knowledge, all cities require a permit to be pulled when work is being completed. So you want to make sure that's actually happening. You need to verify that because that could cause problems for you in the future. You want to make sure they're pulling a work through the city and that the work is being done properly. Also, does the estimate include a post-engineers and post-plumbing report? Not all companies include that in their estimate, so you want to make sure that that's included. And you're going to need that documentation, especially if you have a buyer that's getting financing on the property, and for the lender to be able to verify that the work was completed. And the reason there's a post-plumbing test as well is because some of the times when you're moving the foundation, all the plumbing typically is going through your slab, both your sewer lines and your water lines. So when you're moving that, sometimes pipes can crack and can be damaged and have to be repaired. And so, you know, it's always best to just be potentially prepared for that to happen. In terms of cost, it can vary greatly. You could go all the way from a few $1,000s, and I have an estimate here from one client that ended up spending roughly $20,000 redoing most of the plumbing underneath the house. It's very intensive work. They have to actually tunnel underneath the house, replace piping, and then recompact all that dirt. So it's a very intensive process and can be very expensive as well. Another question is, do they offer post-job cleanup? Very important. Foundation work is a dirty job, so you want to make sure that they are planning to clean up the area and make sure it's, you know, nice following them completing the work. Lastly is the warranty included. You want to make sure there's a warranty. You want to ask if it's a transferable warranty. You want to be able to transfer that when you sell the house in the future. Sometimes there's a cost associated with the transfer, so it's very important to make sure you know all the details about the warranties. Whether you're buying a house that's had foundation work or you're, you know, a seller, you want to make sure that you get a warranty that's transferable because most buyers are looking for that. So always read the fine print in all those contracts as well. So in terms of costs, I was able to pull the, from Home Advisor, they say the average fee associated with it is $4,008. Based on all the estimates, just a few that I've pulled from the work that's been done on the houses that we've helped sell or buy, it ranges anywhere from $2,000 and up to, I think, $8,000 is the most I've seen for foundation work itself. So I would say that estimate is pretty accurate, it seems. So that's going to kind of maybe be your range. But again, it always depends on how extreme the foundation issue is, how soon you've caught it, and the amount of work that has to go into it. It just all could depend. So you got to rely upon, you know, the foundation engineer to really guide you through that along with your real estate agent. In terms of payment, a lot of folks can pay in full, but a lot of folks maybe don't have that cash sitting around. So I've seen a lot of foundation companies offer financing. I believe they use, you know, third-party companies that will finance that amount of work, and so you end up paying a monthly balance when the work is completed. Another option is if you're selling the house. I've had foundation companies bill the title company, so that way when the property closes, the seller is actually paying out of their proceeds at closing for the work that was completed. And sometimes that makes it easier if the sellers don't have any liquid funds to pay for that at the moment, but they know they're going to have it when they sell the house. Usually the foundation company will allow that. It just always depends on which company you're using. So overall, foundation issues are fairly frequent in the state of Texas, and especially in the DFW area. So I wouldn't be very scared of it. It's all about being educated. So it's very important that you look at your options, and then just what I recommended. If you see anything, consult with a foundation engineer if you'd like to get that third-party report, or call a foundation company, or work with your real estate agent to just get their advice about the specific situation you're in, because most real estate agents have helped many clients through these type of transactions. I know we have. And so we have kind of a wide range of knowledge of different scenarios and different levels of work that need to be done, and different ways that can be completed and paid for, and things like that. So, with the education, it's not as scary of a topic. Just go in making an educated decision when you are running into any problems there. So if you guys have any questions at all that maybe we didn't focus on, please be sure to comment below on this video with your questions. We will be focusing on anybody that posts a question. We'll address it, and we would be glad to answer it. If you're on the podcast listening to this, please just go ahead and email us, and we'd be glad to answer those questions via email. You can reach me at jason@visionsrealty.com. Again, that's jason@visionsrealty.com. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we look forward to catching you on the next podcast. Thanks.